Most people think learning faster is all about talent, luck, or being born with it, but deep down you probably know that's not true. You've tried to improve a skill before, maybe entrepreneurship, discipline, emotional control, or any new habit, and even with motivational quotes pinned on your wall, progress still felt slow. And honestly, it's frustrating to want results and feel like your brain just isn't keeping up. But here's the twist nobody warns you about. It's not your brain that's the problem, it's the method you've been using. There's an ancient Japanese learning system, hidden in plain sight, that transforms beginners into masters with shocking speed. A system based on structure, humility, micro steps, and a rhythm that makes your mind absorb skills almost automatically. And once you understand how it works, you'll finally see why some people learn 10x faster while others stay stuck repeating the same cycle for years. The best part? You're just a few steps away from using this same secret to reshape your confidence, your discipline, and every skill you want to master next. He always liked to tell his students that mastering a skill doesn't just change what you can do, it changes who you are. When someone dives deep into real skill development, they start noticing how consistency in one area spills into everything else. A guitarist who commits to obsessive repetition suddenly finds more discipline at work, more emotional control in tough conversations, even more self-confidence when facing chaos. It's wild how the brain loves patterns. Once it learns how to learn faster in one domain, it copies the mindset everywhere. And honestly, that's where entrepreneurship and life start blending like they were meant to. You've seen it happen countless times. A person decides to get good at something small like cooking, coding, or playing a few chords. And boom, that spark grows into a full lifestyle shift. Psychology calls it identity stacking, but he prefers a simpler version. One victory invites the next. Even motivational quotes make more sense when you live them instead of just reading them. The process transforms a beginner to master not just in one craft, but in how they walk, talk, think, and chase results. And you can almost feel that subtle pull leading into the next stage of mastery. He jokes that guitar strings and gym weights are secret therapists, quietly teaching humility, discipline, and emotional control while pretending to be hobbies. When a person chooses one skill to truly master, life begins rearranging itself to support that choice. Their room changes, their friendships shift, their habits evolve because mastery doesn't stay in its lane. It spreads like a quiet revolution. That ripple effect begins shaping how they approach entrepreneurship, relationships, and long-term goals. And the funny part? This domino effect only gets stronger when they uncover the next truth about learning, which is where the story naturally begins to unfold. He often says that one of the most underrated superpowers in learning mastery is simple, quiet humility. Not the dramatic, spiritual kind, just the willingness to copy someone better without letting ego get in the way. In entrepreneurship and any form of skill development, people who grow the fastest are usually the ones who start as unapologetic imitators. They watch the masters, they repeat the basics with consistency, and they allow discipline and emotional control to guide the process. And funny enough, copying doesn't make them feel smaller. It gives them the self-confidence to actually get results. He likes to compare it to the way great chefs learn. Before inventing signature dishes, they spend years copying the recipes of legendary cooks with almost obsessive repetition. No one calls them unoriginal. They call them dedicated. Psychology and philosophy both agree. Imitation is the first bridge between beginner and master. And every time someone surrenders their ego long enough to model a mentor, their brain learns how to learn faster, absorbing techniques that would take years to invent alone. It's the kind of quiet virtue that looks simple on the outside, but transforms everything on the inside. When he talks about learning, he admits with zero shame that recognizing his own masters always accelerated his journey. He sees humility not as weakness, but as a strategy, one that shortcuts years of trial and error. Entrepreneurs do it, musicians do it, athletes do it. Everyone who achieves real results starts by letting someone else's blueprint guide them. And once that foundation is set, something powerful happens. The learner starts developing their own flavor, their own voice, their own spark, which opens the door to an entirely different layer of mastery waiting just ahead. He always reminds people that skill mastery isn't just about what you practice. It's about where and with whom you practice. A strong environment quietly boosts consistency, emotional control, and the discipline needed for real skill development. When someone surrounds themselves with experts, even casually, they absorb patterns faster without realizing it. It's like the brain goes, "Oh, this is what we're doing now. Cool, I'll adapt." That's why anyone serious about entrepreneurship or learning faster should treat their environment like a strategic advantage. He often tells stories of students who leveled up simply by changing their surroundings. One placed his guitar on a stand in the living room instead of leaving it in the case. Suddenly, he practiced twice as much. Another joined a small online group of dedicated learners and instantly felt more self-confidence because the energy was contagious. Psychology shows that proximity to mastery speeds up the beginner-to-master journey, not through magic but through subtle, daily cues. Even motivational quotes hit harder when they're taped to the wall in the right room. And that room, if curated well, can become a quiet machine for results. He loves giving practical tweaks too, organizing books by theme, leaving instruments visible, setting up a no-distraction corner, or choosing mentors who naturally elevate emotional control and discipline. These tiny environmental shifts create what he calls shuari pockets, spaces that guide behavior without needing force. Over time, learners start realizing that environments either speed up or sabotage obsessive repetition. And when you finally step into a space designed for focus and growth, your brain learns faster almost by accident, which leads straight into the next layer of mastery hiding beneath the surface. He loves explaining that mastery isn't just a poetic idea. It's a neurological transformation. When someone repeats a skill with consistency and discipline, the brain begins compressing the process into faster, tighter circuits. At first, everything feels clunky, like trying to drive a car with square wheels. But with obsessive repetition, the brain rewires, building what he jokingly calls mental broadband, allowing smoother emotional control and better results. That's why the shift from beginner to master feels magical, even though it's pure science doing its job. He often uses simple analogies. You don't think about each movement when tying your shoes, and you definitely don't debate grammar rules while chatting in English. That's your brain moving tasks from the slow, conscious part to the automatic, efficient zone. Entrepreneurs, musicians, coders, anyone chasing learning mastery depend on this process. Psychology research shows that after about 1,000 correct repetitions, a skill begins migrating into these automatic circuits. And that's when self-confidence skyrockets, because things finally start to click without forcing it. He reminds his students that this rewiring is the reason discipline matters more than raw talent. Talent doesn't create neural highways, repetition does. Each correct cycle strengthens the pathway, making learning faster and performance smoother. And as these circuits solidify, people experience a quiet shift. Their mind frees up capacity for deeper creativity, strategy, and entrepreneurship-level thinking. What's fascinating is that this neurological evolution naturally leads to the next challenge learners face, and it's one most people never notice until it's too late. You've seen it 1,000 times. People jumping from one skill to another like they're flipping through TV channels, hoping something sticks. Modern life makes it tempting. Notifications, trends, new tools every week. But this taste a little bit of everything mindset rarely brings real results. True entrepreneurship and self-confidence grow when someone picks one path and goes deep. Psychology shows that depth, not variety, builds the emotional control and discipline needed for mastery. Without it, people stay stuck in the cycle of being forever beginners. He likes to remind his students that the market doesn't reward dabblers, it rewards masters. A specialist who truly understands one craft, even if it's not glamorous, often earns more, impacts more, and grows faster than the multitasker trying to juggle 10 things badly. In skill development, going wide before going deep is like learning 5 languages but barely being able to order coffee in any of them. And funny enough, even the best motivational quotes can't save someone from the chaos of scattered attention. Consistency wins every single time. He shares stories of entrepreneurs, artists, and creators who exploded in success the moment they stopped chasing everything and chose one target to master. That focused commitment triggered faster learning, obsessive repetition, and stronger neural circuits. The exact formula for the beginner to master transformation. Once depth is built, branching out later becomes far easier and far more powerful. But most people never get that far because they fear missing out on other shiny skills, which is exactly why the next insight becomes so crucial for staying on the path. He loves teaching that mastery isn't built in dramatic breakthroughs. It's built in tiny, almost boring steps repeated with consistency. Micro habits are the secret weapon behind every skill development journey, whether someone is learning guitar, coding, or entrepreneurship. Breaking a massive goal into small, repeatable actions reduces anxiety and boosts emotional control. And every small win increases self-confidence because the brain starts trusting your discipline. It's amazing how fast results appear once the pressure is lifted from giant goals to small, doable actions. He often gives simple examples. Learning a new language one phrase at a time, practicing one guitar riff instead of an entire song, or mastering a single coding function before diving into full projects. These micro-learning steps help the brain learn faster because it can focus without feeling overwhelmed. Psychology shows that tiny progress activates the reward system, making you crave more repetition. Even motivational quotes hit differently when you're actually moving forward, even if it's just 1 inch a day. And that inch, done daily, turns beginners into masters without them even noticing. He encourages his students to adopt flexible frameworks, a 10-minute rule, a 1-page-a-day rule, or even a 1-rep focus rule. These small commitments remove excuses and make discipline feel natural instead of forced. With time, micro habits stack like bricks, creating a solid foundation for deep skill mastery and entrepreneurship-level thinking. They also reduce emotional resistance, making obsessive repetition feel achievable instead of intimidating. And once these microsystems take root, the journey becomes smoother, setting the stage for the next big decision every learner eventually faces. He always tells his students that choosing the right mentor is half of the learning game. A great mentor isn't just skilled. They embody consistency, emotional control, and the discipline you want to develop in yourself. Reputation matters, of course, but so do values and communication style. You want someone whose results reflect the future you're aiming for. In entrepreneurship and skill development, the right guide can save you years of confusion and give you self-confidence you didn't even know you were missing. He likes to compare mentors to chefs. You learn the recipe, follow their technique, and eventually add your own flavor. But what most beginners misunderstand is that healthy disagreements are part of the process. Psychology calls this the HA stage, where you're allowed, actually expected, to question, adapt, and experiment. Mentors don't want clones. They want thinkers who learn faster by challenging assumptions without losing the essence. And trust him, even the best motivational quotes can't replace the feedback of a real, experienced human being. He often shares his own experiences with mentors, some strict, some gentle, some who push him harder than he liked. But every single one shaped his emotional control, discipline, and mastery in ways he didn't appreciate until much later. A good mentor won't agree with you all the time, and that's the beauty of it. Tension creates growth. When you stay open and humble, even disagreements accelerate skill development. And soon enough, this dynamic opens the door to something learners often underestimate: the strange power of embracing repetition and boredom. He loves reminding his students that boredom isn't the enemy. It's actually the doorway to real mastery. Every athlete, musician, programmer, or entrepreneur who achieves massive results does so by embracing the same boring reps over and over again. Emotional control grows in those quiet moments where nothing exciting happens, but discipline keeps you moving anyway. Consistency turns repetition into second nature, and second nature becomes self-confidence. Funny enough, the things that feel dull are usually the exact things that help you learn faster. He likes sharing real stories. Guitarists who practice the same chord transitions thousands of times, or developers who type the same sequences until their fingers moved without thinking. At first it feels painfully repetitive, but eventually the brain adapts, unlocking that automatic flow zone where skill development accelerates. Psychology shows that obsessive repetition creates the neural strength beginners desperately need but rarely commit to. Even motivational quotes make more sense when you're in the middle of your 50th attempt. And that slow grind often becomes strangely satisfying once the results start showing. He compares repetition to brushing your teeth. You don't celebrate it, but you'd be a mess without it. The same goes for entrepreneurship, learning, or any master-level journey. Boredom is just the signal that you're entering the zone where fewer people have the discipline to stay. And the moment you stay long enough, something shifts. Mastery begins to work for you instead of the other way around, which sets the stage for a new phase of learning, one where experimentation finally becomes not only allowed, but incredibly powerful. He always says that once someone has real consistency and discipline, experimenting becomes not just safe, but necessary. The HA stage of learning is where tiny rebellions start shaping true mastery. It's when you've done enough obsessive repetition to earn the right to play around. In entrepreneurship, cooking, coding, or music, this is where self-confidence gets a spark of creativity. But he reminds everyone, experimentation only works when the foundations are rock solid. He loves using simple examples to make it clear. A cook masters a classic recipe before tweaking spices. A guitarist learns scales before improvising. A writer studies structure before breaking rules. Psychology and philosophy both say that freedom grows from discipline, not from jumping in blind. And even motivational quotes sound wiser when you've built enough skill development to support real innovation. He explains that going too creative too soon is one of the biggest traps beginners fall into, especially in entrepreneurship. Startups collapse when they innovate before validating basics. Artists burn out when they skip fundamentals. Learners stall when they chase shortcuts instead of results. But once the groundwork is steady, experimenting becomes a powerful accelerator that helps the brain learn faster. And all these small rebellions eventually lead learners toward a surprising truth about mastery, one that pulls them right back to where everything began. He loves reminding people that every true master eventually circles back to the basics, but with completely transformed eyes. What once felt simple now reveals new layers of psychology, philosophy, and skill development. Entrepreneurs, musicians, athletes, and creators all rediscover fundamental techniques that suddenly make sense in deeper ways. This return strengthens emotional control and consistency because the foundation becomes unshakable. And that's exactly where results start compounding like crazy. He shares how senior professionals often revisit beginner lessons, not because they forgot, but because mastery changes what those lessons mean. A musician running scales, a coder rebuilding simple functions, or a speaker practicing basic posture. These habits refine neural circuits even further. Discipline becomes smoother, more intuitive, almost effortless. Self-confidence grows not from knowing something new, but from mastering what everyone else rushes through. And this loop back is what elevates someone from expert to true master. He explains that returning to fundamentals doesn't slow you down, it catapults you forward. The basics become tools for faster learning and deeper mastery, especially when paired with obsessive repetition and sharp awareness. Even motivational quotes hit differently because the wisdom behind them becomes real, not theoretical. And this never-ending cycle creates a quiet power that only the deeply committed ever experience, which of course leads directly into the doorway that ties this entire journey together. When you look back at everything you just learned, the real question becomes simple. Are you actually going to apply it? Mastery doesn't come from wishing, hoping, or saving motivational quotes on your phone. It comes from taking that first tiny step and repeating it with consistency, emotional control, discipline, and the kind of self-confidence that grows every time you honor your own commitments. Entrepreneurship, skill development, learning mastery, all of it starts with one deliberate action you choose today. So let me ask you something. What's the first micro habit you'll implement? Which skill have you avoided because it felt too big or too overwhelming? And what's the one area of your life where obsessive repetition could finally give you the results you've been chasing? Your answers matter. Not just for engagement, but because writing them down is the first step to turning intention into transformation. If you're truly ready to learn faster, grow deeper, and move from beginner to master without wasting years, then stick around. This journey is just starting. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the next lesson that could change everything for you. Let's keep mastering this together, step by step, insight by insight.